What is going on, everyone? Greatest Hits here. I am back with another video, and I am excited because I got some more modifications for this car. I've had these modifications for about a few weeks or so, and I was waiting to put them in because I was doing other things and I was making other videos and stuff like that. But and waiting for each part to come in as well. But it's all here. I'm actually going to be dropping this transmission for the first time. This is the biggest job that I will ever do in my life, and hopefully everything goes well. I looked at a lot of videos and I've done a lot of research, and I'm confident in doing it. So if I need help, these guys around the shop will help me out. I'm currently at work, but I'm not working. I'm just here to put a 3000 stall torque converter in my car and a transmission cooler as well. This transmission cooler will help keep the transmission cool whenever I'm racing, or if I'm driving for hours and hours and hours, because these 4060E transmissions that are in this car, they don't really do well with high performance speed and stuff like that over a long period of time, and it'll start to overheat and fail. So I bought the super cooler for that from B&M. So I'm going to show you all the modifications that I have on my toolbox in a few minutes. As far as the torque converter, the stock torque converter on this car is a 1800, but the converter that I bought is a 3000 stall. So I'm going to be getting a dramatic change in launch and drivability and everything like that. When you put in an aftermarket torque converter in any car to race or anything like that, it will drastically drop your ETs at the track, as in estimated time, and it will make your car a heck of a lot faster. It'll even drop down to a second instead of just a tenth of a second or 3/10 of a second. It's amazing. It really is. I've seen a lot of videos, and it's the RPM goes up a lot quicker. And speaking of RPM, with this new torque converter, I bought it because I want to get into the power band, which means I want to make my horsepower quicker than usual. So let's say if I stomp on the throttle now in the stock converter, it's gonna take a little bit, but it's gonna speed up and it's gonna get faster and faster and stuff like that. But with this new torque converter, I'm gonna have a lot more throttle response. It's going to get into the power band quicker, and my 0 to 60s are going to go down dramatically too, hopefully. 0 to 60s on this car, I think it's like 5.5 seconds. The best that I've done on this car is a 6 seconds 0 to 60 on the street. And I haven't made a video for that yet because I've been wanting to do that. But anyway, that's besides the point. But I can't wait to put this torque converter in and get it done before 2 o'clock, because that's what time my job closes on Saturdays. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, here's all the things you need. You need the fluid. If you bought a transmission cooler, obviously you need that. And you need a gasket and the transmission filter. It comes with this little metal circle thingy. I don't think I'm going to replace that, but if it's bad, then I am going to replace it. It just goes into this tube. This is Yank Performance Converters Racing. Let me show you guys what it looks like. I bought some ARP head bolts. That way it can stay in there, lock in there, and do its job and everything like that. Put that up there. And here it is, guys. Before you install this converter, what you want to do is put at least one cord in there and just kind of take the converter and kind of move it around, make sure the fluid is in the proper areas and stuff like that. Like I said, this will be my first time doing it, and I want to make sure I'm doing everything right. So you don't have to put all the fluid in here, because it's just gonna transfer to the transmission to fill it up with fluid, I assume. So yep. As far as quarts, this is 15 quarts right here, but the transmission takes 12. I just bought 3 more quarts because I want to make sure that that cooler is filled up with transmission fluid as well. And yeah, hopefully I don't screw it up, because if you don't put in that converter in properly, then you'll mess up your pump and the transmission, and you'll essentially break your transmission and it would not work. Also, when you put this converter in here, you want to drive it for 150 miles. Yank Performance sent me this. You want to make sure that when you put this torque converter in, that it's seated in properly, and that you drive it for at least 150 miles. Break-in period down here. Let you guys read that. And then this is everything right here, step by step. Another thing, you want to take the air box off. You want to take this off as well when you're doing the cooler, because you want to sit it behind here. As far as all of the things that you have to do to take off the transmission, I'm going to bring you guys along and show you how to do all that. And I suggest that you take off the negative battery terminal and the positive, just to be safe. You are going to have to take off the starter on the passenger side underneath the engine where the transmission goes. So I suggest you do that before you do anything else. The transmission oil pan off. Next thing you want to do is pull this filter right here down, and then we'll get to the seal that's inside of here. If you guys can see, the seal is inside of there right here. You just got to pull this down. You just literally just kind of push down. There's no bolts or anything. So yeah, let's get down to it. Be careful, don't snatch it out too far, you might break something. Just kind of wiggle it out and it will come down. So yep, just like that. It goes, this top piece goes up in there first, and then it just pushes in. If this breaks inside that seal, then I'm gonna have to take it out. But if I can't take it out, it's fine. Just put the new filter on there and put the oil pan back on there and disconnect everything else and drop the transmission. Alright guys, as you can see, it's completely clean now. That's just some slight rust build up, but nothing to be worried about. What I did was I used a lot of brake cleaner to clean this off, and it's not going to hurt anything if you use brake cleaner. Other than that, I used a wire brush to kind of break up all the old gasket off because it was very brittle. So I'm done. I'm gonna put this up in here and then take the drive shaft off and go from there. Alright guys, I got all the bolts in. There really isn't any sequence to putting these bolts back on the pan, and these bolts are 13 millimeters and you have to torque them to 9 foot-pounds. You don't have to, but that's the that's what GM calls for. So forgot to mention, keep in mind that you want to separate these bolts from the other bolts that you take off when you take off the oil pan and drain it. That way you don't put these two bolts in the wrong places, because these two bolts are longer than all the other ones. So when you put it back on, just make sure the bolt that you have in your hand is longer, because this goes to, I think this is a linkage or something, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah. Alright guys, I got a 24 millimeter and a breaker bar to spin this crankshaft. Make sure you put the vehicle in neutral before you do this job. You don't have to take the belt off, just spin the crank. Make sure you have the starter off. And my bolt is a 17 millimeter. Let me take this wrench off real quick for you guys. My bolt is the 17 millimeter. Once you see the flywheel, this is the flywheel right here, turn where you can see the bolt. Go ahead and loosen it, but don't take it all the way out. Just loosen it a little bit, and keep spinning the crankshaft and do the same for the other 2 bolts. There's a total of 3 bolts. The converter is sitting in the back of the flywheel, and you just take 3 bolts off and go from there. The reason why you want to loosen them a little bit is because when you spin this crank, it might get caught behind the engine and you're gonna be in big trouble. So just loosen it a little bit and spin it until it comes loose, and then we're gonna make our way to the torque arm and then the cross member, and yeah, go from there. All right, guys, like I said before, take the cross member off, take the torque arm off, and then the transmission should hang, and then get the bolts out first. I think you're supposed to do the top ones first and then work your way down. That way the bottom end is not hanging too far and it doesn't drop or anything. I'm also going to get a transmission jack to brace it, so once I have it down, I'm going to show you guys everything. But right now it's around 10:30 and I'm trying to finish this up, so I'm not going to show you guys everything. Sorry, but I'm trying to rush at this because I don't have a whole lot of time. All right, guys, I got almost everything out. Drive shaft sitting over there. Transmission is hanging. I pushed the torque arm out of the way. You kind of have to maneuver it in such a way. But the next thing you want to do is make sure you disconnect everything. Disconnect this, I can't remember what's this called. I think it's some type of sensor or whatever. You just pop that out. I think you squeeze it and you pop it out. And then you disconnect the transmission fluid lines in there. If y'all can see that. It's hard to focus. But anyways, yeah. Disconnect those lines right there. And then you come around over here and you take these 13mm bolts out. I know we put them back in, but let this down and you're not really gonna have a whole lot of issues with pulling down the transmission. So all right, guys, so I got a breaker bar, a long breaker bar, to put a bunch of extensions together. I knew I had to do this because the bolt all the way up on the top of the transmission is way back there, and you have to get an extension or a lot of extensions to get to it, and a swivel so you can turn it and maneuver it and get it out. The rest of these bolts here, if y'all can see, but that bolt over there, right there where my finger is at, and then go on down, and then the same thing on the other side. The other side is not really going to be, well, actually it probably is going to be hard, but because I see the bolt way up in the corner. But yeah, this is going to be so much fun. Old torque converter, and here's the new one. There's obviously a slight size difference This one's a little bit taller and a little bit wider. This is a 1800 stall and this is the 3000 stall. So I'm gonna throw it in there, and my buddy's helping me out. He helped me pull this transmission out. He's just trying to tie it up and everything, make sure it doesn't fall over. But this is the inside. This looks really, really freaking cool, guys. Really cool. You have 8 bolts here, 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 and 2 down there. I took out the bottom bolts last, but when we were taking it out, I didn't realize there was another bolt up here on the driver's side towards the top. So we finally took that out. That's a new output shaft seal that I put on there about almost a year ago, or maybe a year ago. So, and if you notice, it says 4L60E GM PT. There's the flywheel up there where the torque converter bolts up to. The engine up here. Man, this looks sick, guys. Really sick. I love it. But let me finish, and I'm gonna show you guys how to put this converter on. When you put this torque converter in, you wanna put it in and move it back and forth like that, really side to side like that, and till you hear 3 clicks. So once the first click hits, you do the same thing, back and forth, click, back and forth, click. And then after that, you make sure it's in there. I would turn it around and push it in there to make sure it's seated all the way in there. If it is not seated all the way in there, you will tear up your transmission, and it's done and over with. So that's what I'm gonna do now. Alright guys, it's been 2 weeks now. Sorry this video is super old now. Not super old, but it's 2 weeks old. I had little complications putting the transmission in, but I finally got it in with some help with my manager. He's a really good expert on putting in transmissions and rebuilding them and everything like that. So yeah, I finally got it in with the torque converter 3000 stall, and I broke it in. So it took me about 4 or 5 days to break in the torque converter, and it's phenomenal. It's a huge difference, but when I added the transmission cooler about 4 or 5 days ago, because I didn't have time to do both last Saturday, today is Saturday of 2 weeks later, it made a world of difference. Actually, the manual said when you put in this torque converter, you want to add in the transmission cooler as well to help cool down the transmission. When you cool down the transmission is going to perform a lot better, and it's just going to do great. So I'm loving it so far. It's great. I'm going to show you guys how I mounted everything on the transmission cooler. I'm also going to show you guys a launch in the car, because it's pretty radical. And I can't wait to see what 0 to 60s I can do on this car. But here's a better view of it. I took the top hose and routed it around, and then underneath this coolant hose right here, and then I also zip tied it together with the other hose that went on the bottom. But what I did was I routed this hose down, and then I went up around the coolant hose, and then I installed it inside of here. That's where your transmission fluid will run through the side of the actual radiator. I actually routed that down there. If y'all can see that hose, y'all can see right there, I routed it at the bottom. That's where your transmission fluid lines run through underneath the engine, and it comes downward and then up into the radiator. So yeah, it's pretty simple. I got the transmission cooler mocked up, and actually I had the transmission cooler mounted up to the condenser. I'm not going to be using my AC anymore. I'm going to be deleting it so I can lose some weight on the car, but this is where it's going to be for right now until I figure out a new spot for it. I wouldn't advise mounting the cooler to the radiator, because the radiator does get up to a certain temperature and it can cause this cooler to get hotter, and then your transmission cooler is essentially not a transmission cooler, because I mean it's just getting hot under, you know, the heat and the hot air and stuff like that. So I hope I explained it well for you guys. You got your top hose and then you got your bottom hose. I wish I had more time to actually show you guys step by step how to put this cooler together. But again, I didn't have time on Saturday. I didn't actually finish putting the transmission back in after I put the converter in. I had to wait like 2 days to come back to work on Monday, because I didn't work Sunday because we're off on those days, to actually finish up. And then after that, I just drove the car for a certain amount of mileage at 150 and broke the converter in. And then a few days after that, I put the cooler in, and that was it. Guys, I love this car. I'm gonna show you guys how hard this car lunges, and yeah, let's go.